Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to hear from two sheep producers, Ryan Mahoney, who owns and manages Amy Livestock in Dixon, California, and Janet Turner. She and her husband own and manage Ewe Lamb Right Farm in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. And they're going to address how they use electronic identification in their flocks. So let's start out, Ryan, with you giving us a brief overview of your operation, and then we'll give Janet her turn to tell us about their operation.
Sure. Thank you for having me on today. My name is Ryan Mahoney. I own our Amy Livestock out of Rio Vista, Dixon, California. I'm a fifth generation sheep rancher. I bought the company from my grandfather last August, or I guess August 19th. So that's almost a year and a half now. And it was started by my great grandfather back in the 1870s. We're a commercial operation. My sole job is to run the farm. We run about 5,000 breeding ewes at the moment. We also have about 1,400 mother cows, and then we also have a extensive feeder operation where we buy in lighter lambs and grow them out and resell them, or we buy in feeder cattle and grow them out and resell them. And then we also operate a sheep feedlot out of Dixon, California. Um, it's pretty intense. We utilize EIDs in our cow herd and our ewe herd, and I'm pretty excited to be able to talk about what we do with them today.
Thank you. And Janet, will you tell us about your operation?
Sure. Thanks for having me on part of the panel. My husband Dan and I have Ewe Lamb Right Farm. We're in South Central Pennsylvania. We've got about 250 breeding Katahdin ewes on about 80 acres. We sell breeding stock as well as animals for meat. And we both work away from the farm. The farm is our retirement plan. So we both work away from the farm. Neither of us grew up on a farm. I'm an accountant from Cincinnati, and my husband has a hydraulic business. And so the farm is a side gig until we can retire and do the farm full time.
Thank you. Sounds like two places I should visit. Moving on to our next question, we'd like you to both tell us why you use animal identification for managing your operation, and then expand into how you use electronic animal identification as well. And let's just keep going in the same order. Ryan, if you want to go first, and then Janet.
Sure. So we started to look for ways to, in California, our labor costs are one of our largest expenses. And as they've gone up over the last 10 years, and especially in the last 5, we've been looking for ways to increase our efficiencies of productivity. And so one of the ways we looked into doing that was the use or the potential use of this EID technology. I had the opportunity to go to Australia, New Zealand through the Tri-Lamb Young Leaders program, which was a huge benefit to me, opening my eyes to some of the resources that were out there for producers that kind of jumped into this kind of technology. And so we decided we were going to take the plunge about, I think it was in 2016, 2017, and we put in EIDs on all our ewes. And one of the things we didn't want to do is just spend money to have cool things in their ears. We wanted to make sure we implemented a full system. So we looked into software. We sorted through a couple different management softwares, and then hardware as far as things to actually collect and read the tags, and ended up settling on a kind of combination of different brands and makes and models and things. But we inputted it all, and then we wanted to track specific things that could return value to the company through measuring those efficiency equations. So we're in Solano County, California, which is kind of a semi-coastal climate. It's not true coast. but it's also not true valley either. It's kind of, we're in the delta, and so, but in the winter we get a lot of rain, and we do have fine-wooled sheep, and so we end up having quite a bit of foot rot pressures, and so that was our largest cost, and that's really why we wanted to implement this, was to be able to manage on a individual head basis the quality and quality of the hooves, basically, or the foot health of the animals. And so we put the ear tags in. We measured through visual and trimmed. We recorded all the information. And from 2016 to 2018, we went from trimming 100% of our ewes' hooves to, in 2018, we're trimming 12.6% of our hooves. And so that's a huge, I mean, you take that percentage and drop it out over 4,000 or 5,000 ewes. I think our herd average over those 5 years is about 4,000. And to be able to lower that input cost, you know, that frees up that dollar you're putting into labor to do the job, and frees up that dollar to do something else. And it's just been a huge benefit for us on that side of it. I don't want to take too much time away from Janet's answer. I'm excited about that. But the other huge value that we didn't expect was our increased fertility and being able to manage the pregnancies all the way through to lambing and the twinning and manage the dries better, basically. And so from 2016, we went from about a 86.5% lamb crop on ewes exposed to lambs sold. And then in 2019 and this year, I guess it'll be 2021 crop, we're at about the same percentage. We've gone to where we're now 120%. So we've seen about whatever that is, a 34% increase in our lamb crop. And that's on the same fixed overheads. We paid for the initial cost of the tags, but we're still feeding the same feed. We're still hiring the same labor force. We're still putting in the same efforts at lambing. But just being able to manage that was a huge response. For 4,000 ewes, the math on that is about $300,000 a year in additional income to the operation. So it was huge, absolutely huge.
Thank you. Okay, Janet, it's your turn.
All right, so why did we ID our animals? My husband's had sheep for about 20 years, and actually we didn't track any of the sheep with ID tags or anything until 7 years ago. The reason we did that is we started with a handful of sheep for my husband's border collie, and to practice his competitive sheep herding. And that's what the sheep were for, is just the sheep were for the dog. So we kept them on borrowed farmland that surrounded our house, and the sheep, we didn't keep track of any of the sheep. They were just we had a ram, just any old ram out there with them that stayed with them year round. And it was truly survival of the fittest. We didn't worm, we didn't check eyes, we didn't take care, we didn't vaccinate, we didn't do anything except work them with the dog. So we went from doing nothing to the sheep. Then when we had lambs, when the ewes had lambs and we would have the lambs out there, we would take the ram lambs to just the local livestock market just to get rid of them. And then we would keep all the ewe lambs. So our flock just grew every year just from keeping all the ewe lambs. And in 2014, we purchased that 80-acre farm that's around our house. So at that point in time, we thought, okay, we own a farm now. What are we going to do with it? And we decided we're going to have a sheep farm. You know, we know sheep. So we decided we're going to have a sheep farm, and that became our retirement plan. That's what we're going to do with this farm when we retire. So in the meantime, we're building up our farm. So we got serious about raising sheep. And even though my husband had had sheep for a long time, I quickly realized he didn't know much about taking care of sheep, like vaccinations and worming and all that. And so we had to educate ourselves. And so we joined our local we joined our sheep association. We have Katahdins. So we joined KHSI so we could go to get some education and learn how to take care of the sheep. And through that, we also learned about the National Sheep Improvement Program, NSIP. And both of those programs require you to, know who your animals are. So we wanted to eventually have registered animals with the KHSI. And then we also wanted to improve our genetics and improve our flock through NSIP. So in 2014, we tugged every animal that we had on the farm, and we knew nothing about them except, okay, this is a white sheep that was on the farm on this day, and it has this tag number. We have no idea what its birth date was. We had no idea who its parents were, or if it had even lambed. So 2014, we started keeping track. And so that's when we started tagging our sheep, is because for those reasons, we started keeping records. Then the way that we use the EID tags that we have, we didn't start with the EID tags until 2018. But the way that we use them is, now that we have EID tags, we put them in the lamb's ears the day that they're born. And then that starts that lamb's record. The ewe's lambing record and the lamb's records are all updated at the same time in our handheld unit that goes when we read the tags. We read all the tags with a reader. We have a Bluetooth scale that as soon as we read an ear tag of a sheep that's in the scale will send the weight to our handheld, so that all that data is being collected, and I'm not writing it down on a clipboard anymore. I can program the handheld reader to have a pop-up comment when certain tag is read, such as like a ewe that I want to look at because her lamb wasn't growing well. We could have it pop up and say, check this ewe's teats, maybe she's got mastitis, or the lamb lost weight. So we check that. We check them both for worms and see if we have to worm somebody, because we don't routinely worm. We only worm when they need that. So we can take a closer look at that animal. We manage them intensely. We run them through the chute all the time. We're always weighing them. Weights tell us a lot about how they're growing and if there's a problem. So that's why we run them through a lot. And all the data is getting collected in that handheld, so that when we come into the house, I put it in the reader into the cradle, and it uploads all that information we collected automatically up into my computer, so I don't have to key anything anymore like I used to. I used to spend days and days, like after I came home from work, I'd be still keying things from the weekend. So we use the IDs for that, for intensely managing our sheep and keeping the data. We can sort animals quickly with the EID tags, as far as I can program it ahead of time for, let's say it's breeding season and we've got 3 different rams we're sorting to. I can program it then as they come through the chute, as fast as they come through the chute, and we can use the gate to sort them. It has a visual on it as well as the voice that says left, right, straight, and we can get through them as fast as we can run the gates. And so it saves us a lot of time getting quickly through there. So that's one way, whether we're selling or breeding or weaning, whatever we're having to sort them for, we can quickly do that. One of the ways that we use the electronic ear tags that was a bonus, and our buyers like it, is we sell meat rams that we sell by the pound. So when we have a buyer come to buy meat rams and they want to buy a trailer full or 20 or whatever, we run all those meat rams across the scale, and the buyer, as we're collecting the weights, as we're reading them, the buyer's looking at them saying yes or no, and so we sort them left or right depending on which ones he wants. And then at the end of that process, I tell the reader, okay, these are sold. And I just read the ear tags as they're jumping on the trailer, as they're loading them up. And I come in the house, upload all that data. I can print out the report immediately of what animals got on that trailer and what they weighed. Then I bring that report back out, and by the time I get out there, they might have, you know, finished locking up the trailers and getting ready to go. The buyer has the total weight and can write his check according to, you know, whatever we're charging per pound. He knows exactly what animals, what scrapie tag numbers, what management tag numbers, and what that animal weighed. Everything that's on his trailer. It happened pretty, and just, it didn't take any extra effort at all for that. So the buyers have been pretty impressed about that. And they know that they're only paying for exactly what they're getting, because they saw them come across that scale and it's immediate time. So that's another way. So we have it. And another way that we use our electronic tags, though, that I don't want to forget to mention, is that when we run them through the scale, there's a feature on there that tells us what tags we did not read. So at the end of the day, we may say, oh, we didn't read this lamb or this ewe, and then we know, hey, we got to go check the woods, or we got to check the back lot, and it's like, we got either someone died or someone's sick, we didn't get somebody into the barn, we didn't see it. So in those cases, we can find maybe somebody that was lagging behind because they weren't doing well, and we missed them, and, you know, we didn't see them lagging behind. So that's another way that we use that on the farm.
Great, thank you. I think you answered one of my questions, which was, does the EID also function as your official scrapie ID? Is that true for you, Ryan, and true for you, Janet?
Yeah, we transitioned to where the EID tag is also our scrapie tag, and that was another benefit. I mean, we don't. For us, the less you can do, the better. And so to have one tag to handle all of those things was a huge benefit. Yeah, and then the tags we use you can color code them per birth years and things like that too. And it's pretty beneficial for us to use it that way. It's huge. And I wanted to mention that you mentioned about being able to have the feature where not seen. So we're able to run a report at the end of the year that basically says, ewes not seen in the last 6 months or the last year, and all of our ewes will get run through every reader at least twice a year. So if they skip and miss, it's typically because of theft or death loss, and to be able to quantify that has been pretty beneficial. We do have some theft issues out in our area, and to be able to narrow down and go to the sheriffs and tell them, hey, we're missing 187 ewes this year that are unaccounted for and missing, whereas before it was, oh, we're short 187, but they're probably dead somewhere, or we don't know, or maybe we double counted something, you know. But to be able to tie it to that, you have this individual marker and be able to tie that specifically to something. It's really been a huge benefit for us to start to measure things. You can't make decisions on data, or, you know, you got to measure stuff first, and the EID is kind of that first step, is how I see it. It's, if you want to improve the efficiencies of your flock, regardless of scale, small or large, you have to take that first step and start to measure. And you can do it through a notepad, you can do it through Excel, you can do it through a lot of different ways, but that EID tag is so easy and so user-friendly that it's just, it's such a, to me, it's a no-brainer. So.
Yeah, as far as the EID tags, we put it in the lamb's ear the day it's born. Here's a picture of one of the, here's what they look like. And it's a small tag that loops over like this. It is the scrapie tag as well as the ear tag for that. In our operation, we also put in our regular tags, so that they get one The electronic reader tag is the scrapey tag. And then the management tag is the other tag that we put in so that we can see it from our eyes. If we're in the Kubota or we're someplace and we can see the tag and we can read it without actually going out there and grabbing that lamb. So we use both. And then if one gets lost, we still can identify that animal because we need to keep accurate records on our animals.
Sure. How about when you transitioned over from visual only or hardly any ID to electronic ID? What challenges and words to the wise can you give fellow producers as they get ready to make that and go through that change?
Yeah, so when we first started, we had really grand ideas of what it could possibly do for us. And me and another guy that I work with, we sat down and we made a list of 56 different traits that we wanted to measure. Everything from wool to the way the wool laid to the meat quality to weights. I mean, absolutely anything you can think of. We just made this big giant list. And then we said, all right, let's go out and let's collect some data. And here we got 4,000 ewes. And we go and we put the first one in, and it takes us 3 minutes to gather all the information that we wanted off of her. And then we put the next one in. That took another 3 minutes. And then we started to do the math that this is going to take us literally 2.5 months straight of collecting information for us to even get close to what we wanted. And so that pretty quick, we took that list and we narrowed it down to specific things that we needed to improve in our flock. So like I mentioned earlier, the foot rot was the first thing we wanted. And so, and we're bringing stuff through, we bring everything through our handler at least twice a year, usually preg scanning and then foot trimming. And then actually sometimes a third one now pre-shearing. And so they're going through 3 times a year and getting read. So every time we go through, we try to collect one piece of information more to kind of add to our list. But the feet, we narrowed it down to the feet and because that was what we call low-hanging fruit in our company. We want to identify something where we can knock the bottom 5 to 10% off to improve our efficiencies. And so we want to measure something to eliminate that unproductive end, the least productive end. So the foot rot was the easiest. And I mentioned the results there. One result that we had that I didn't mention was in our wool quality. So we were able to, we've been taking, one of the huge benefits is you're able to run these animals all as one herd, but on a commercial scale, but be able to look at them through I call it through like a purebred operations eyes. You're actually able to collect large amounts of individual information on them. So we take our ewes and we put them all into, we hand grade the wool basically on the back, and we take the coarse end and we call them a coarse line. And then pre-shearing, we run them through an auto drafter that reads the tag and will automatically sort those coarse lined wools out. And then we shear them separate. So when they're going through the shed, we've already sorted the fleeces once. So the work at the shed handling those fleeces is a very refined job now, working on that 2 to 5%, rather than when we sheared it the old days, we'd throw everything in there, and we're working on trying to pull out 20 to 30% of the coarse end. And so that's taken our wool from, we were yielding 53.9, 76 millimeters long, 21.7 micron in 2016. In 2020, we were 61.7 yield, 83 millimeters and 21.5 micron. So we have a finer clip, a much larger yield, and we get paid on yield, and a longer length. And that's all just by being able to understand your sheep better. Like these EIDs, they're part of the solution or part of being able to measure your efficiency. It's a data collection tool, but they're really the base or the core of what has opened up for us endless possibilities in being able to evaluate the production of our herd. It's just been phenomenal for us. I can't stress enough. I hope they require EITs nationwide, because I think everybody will be blown away by when they finally do it. So.
Thank you, Ryan. And Janet, can you add some more? Because you've all illustrated some wonderful points.
You want to talk about you want me to talk about the challenges in transitioning over? Okay, the biggest challenge to us was the cost of the reader and the Bluetooth scale. We agonized about spending that money, and now we kick ourselves for not doing it sooner, actually. We saw it at an expo one time. We saw it demonstrated, and it's like, oh, look at that. That would be nice. We wouldn't have to be cleaning ear tags so we could read them, and you know, holding the sheep's head, manhandling them, and just, it's like, you know, that'd be really nice, but boy, is that expensive. And you know, this being our hobby farm, it was like, well, can we spend that? So we thought about it for a year or so, and then it was, once we bit the bullet and we bought it, now it's the best tool on the farm, besides the barn. So getting over the cost was our biggest challenge, but it's paid for itself over and over again. And then our next challenge, though, to transition was actually transferring the data that we had started collecting. So we had several years worth of data. We started keeping data for 2014. We went to the EIDs in 2018. So we had all that data, and I had found, I was keeping track of it in Flockfiler. So our new reader that we had, the electronic system came with its own software called FarmWorks. We went with the Shearwell system out of United Kingdom is what we have. But actually, we were able to download the data to an Excel spreadsheet out of Flockfiler and then upload that into FarmWorks. So I didn't have to rekey all that data. And that was a big plus. Of course, you know, learning the new software, you have a little bit of a learning curve. There were lots of reports already, you know, built in there. And it was like, oh, look, we can look at this now, look at that. And so it's very user friendly for when our transition was. And then we just had to put a new tag in ears. So as far as, like we talked earlier about the scrapey tags, we already had scrapey tags in our existing flock. So what we did is we were able to order a different tag that is just the electronic reader. And this is not a scrapey tag. So that way we put these on those existing sheep that we already had, that already had a scrapey tag, and then that solved our scrapey tag issue. So other than that, that was our issue, and that was it for the transition. It was very easy to get started with that.
Well, thank you both. It was tremendously informative. I don't know if you have a closing sentence or two, and after that, we'll need to wrap it up due to our time limitations, but we surely appreciate all those wonderful words of wisdom and experience that both of you have brought to us today.
Yeah, I would just add on to the cost as one of the challenges we had. I think it's really important you don't overlook that. You need to understand what you're getting into, and you need to understand it's not just the dollar for an ear tag. If you're going to go with the ID tags, you really do need to get the reader, and you really do need to get some software that you're comfortable using, and you need to look at your operation and see what it can handle. The scale and size and markets you're selling into will all play into that. Like, what works on my place is not going to work for my neighbor, and it's not going to work for the next person down the road. And I think that's true for, I think that's the strength of the American sheep industry, is the diversity that we have. And, but it's really important to evaluate those things. But then I just want to echo what Janet said, that we ended up buying an auto drafter and a sheep handler and we spent some money on it, but we could not believe how quickly it paid for itself. It paid for itself in less than a year. and just in our workers' comp going down. I mean, there's so many ways that it pays for itself in these weird backwards ways. And, you know, it paid for itself in the workers' comp, but then we realized this huge value in our lambing, in our lamb crop, our efficiencies. We went from 480 lambs per employee to now we produce 535 per employee. So there's just all of these layers where it really builds on itself. And so, you know, it's just, yeah, I encourage everybody to look seriously at the expense of it, understand the expense of it, but then don't be afraid of making a capital investment in your operation, because you know, you need to do that. So,
Janet, do you have a few thoughts to leave us with?
I do. I want to stress the huge benefits of actually us transitioning. The time saver used to take us, even though we're a small hobby farm, it used to take us 2 long days with 3 people to go through our flock and weigh them. And then the next several nights at night, when I came home from work, I'd be keying all that data into the system. And so what used to take us 2 full days of sorting, 3 people, now takes us an hour and a half to 2 hours, and eliminates all my keying because it just uploads it. So saving that much time, especially for us who only have the weekends to deal with the sheep. So that 3 people, it used to take us 2 full days. That's 42 hours, 42 hours of labor. So if you're paying someone just for 1 weekend, you figure that's 42 hours times whatever your dollar rate is. Doesn't even include my time I spent keying. And not only that, it's very fast, and the data is accurate. It's more accurate. We're not, my husband isn't, you know, spit shining tags and calling them out to me, and I'm trying to say, what? I can't hear you. The sheep are too loud. And then flipping through 17 pages of numbers on my clipboard to find that number, then to write down the weight. And then I say, oh, you already gave me that number. Which one is this? Which one was right? The one you got now or the one that you had before? And if it's the one you have now, I'd look at it again. I'm like, well, then who was the other one? And so we had, you know, I couldn't enter the data for the other one. It was missing. I didn't know who it was. And it just took so long. So now all of those little, you know, misreading tags, writing it on the wrong line on the clipboard, anything like that, not only is it quicker, now it's accurate. The reader reads the tag, the weight is loaded in, so we know exactly that is the sheep that it's with. So our data, and with being in the sheep improvement program, we need data. We're relying on that data to make intelligent decisions on what we keep, what we sell for breeders, you know, to be able to tell who the good sheep on our farm are and who needs to go. So even though we're not a huge operation like Ryan, we still make all those kind of decisions. And we even have now, instead of 3 people being able to process sheep, we can do it, and 1 person can do it by themselves with the reader. We can say, hey, we got to, you know, we want to take these 20 ram lambs to the auction tonight when we, you know, get off work. Can you sort them out for us? And they can take the reader, and I've already got it programmed, and 1 person can just run them through the chute and sort according to the reader. We come home from work, they're ready to load on the trailer and go. So it has saved us so much time, and having, you know, not being there, we pay people to help us. So now we're not spending that much money on labor, on the help, but we also have the accurate records. So being with the accurate records, we definitely have better decisions. We have a better quality of sheep. We can intensely manage now because we run ours through the chute every 2 weeks, especially since it's so easy. We just run them through, and then we get a good look on, we can say, oh, this one lost some weight from last time. check it, check its mom, make sure it's not needing attention. So we have more animals to sell because we're taking better care of them. They're living. We're not having animals that die after 6 weeks or something because we can catch those. So we have more to sell. And then with the making the right decisions, we have a better quality of animal too, that also people are coming to us for breeding stock, and we have that accurate data to back up those animals to get that higher prices on those. So it has been a tremendous tool for us. And I think it would help even the small, hobby farms, even, a lot smaller than ours. I think it would help everyone.
Well, I want to thank both of you and express our appreciation, and hopefully we can visit in person a year from now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.